perhaps good evening to folks that are joining us on the call. We'll go ahead and get started. I know there's a lot happening in the world today, and we appreciate your time to hang with us for this update. We'll have about 30 minutes of presentation, leaving about 30 minutes of question and answer. We are translating this presentation into Spanish. The instructions for how to receive the Spanish audio are on the screen in front of you. This is our update for November, the first of two updates scheduled this week. So if you didn't hear something you wanted to hear, there'll be an encore presentation later this week. Everybody is muted when they come into the meeting, except for the panelists. This is being recorded and will be posted online. While the interpretation for the presentation portion is being translated, I don't know that we'll be able to translate the Q&A live. We'll do the best we can, but that may not be translated live. So please use the Q&A panel, question and answer panel in the Zoom meeting features to type in your questions, and we'll take as many of them as we can through the course of the presentation, or at the end of the presentation, rather. So the agenda for today, we're going to cover, as we always do, brief introductions around the transition team and recap how we got to where we are today. Give an overview of, a high-level overview of the transition structure and the process that the teams are following. We'll spend some time listening about 3 different team updates, and then we will also hear about the proposed membership model, and then the Q&A period after that. So the transition team is made up of NACE and SSPC members. This transition team was put in place by essentially the board of directors for NACE and the board of governors for SSPC. They're the ones that nominated the members to serve. And then we have Bob Chalker, who's the CEO of the new organization, and Cynthia O'Malley, who is the Chief Integration Staff Officer. High-level timeline. Again, this is a process that has been underway for several years now, starting back in early 2018 with just some conversations and exploratory meetings, progressing through 2019, keeping our respective boards updated. At the beginning of 2020, the beginning of this year, we had board of directors votes for each organization, as well as the member vote that occurred in April. Since that time, we've been working the integration, the legal aspects, the branding aspects through most of, well, I guess the second half of this year. And our intent, and we're still on track to launch the new organization early in the new year in January, but we recognize the work won't be completed then. It will still have to continue through the first half of 2021 and perhaps some work continuing beyond that point. So high level, it's a big project, right? There's a lot of moving parts to have to bring together to make this work. Since the membership vote back in April, and we were able to get started in earnest in May, again, we had the transition team that was put in place by the respective boards. We selected the CEO for the new organization, which is Bob Chalker. We formed and launched the integration teams, which are made up of NACE and SSPC members, as well as NACE and SSPC staff. We kicked off a branding um, exercise to work with a third-party agency to determine what the brand and all of the elements that go with the brand. It's more than just a name or more than just a logo, but all of the elements that go with a brand early in the process, and they continue to do their work as we speak. Integration teams have been working to come together and evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of each other's programs, and are developing recommendations to present back to the transition team. There is a governance integration team, and they've been working to establish the right government structure for the new organization. And last month, we shared with you the board members that have been approved and put into place for the new board of directors as we go forward in the new year. From a high level standpoint, this is the structure that we have. The transition team oversees all of the integration teams, all of the integration activities. There is a steering team, which is essentially the board executive committees for NACE and SSPC working together. And then the staff integration team, as well as the 14 integration teams that are working to bring the different programs together. The steering team is meeting bi-weekly. The transition team meets bi-weekly. Steering team meets weekly, excuse me. And the integration teams meet on a cadence that is best for their specific team. So in some cases, they're meeting weekly as well. And we are trying to apply project management principles to this program integration. Here are the major integration teams, the main integration teams. There are a couple that aren't listed here, but accreditation, branding, certification, which is aimed at individuals, our chapters and sections, how we're bringing those together, conferences and events, education, governance, pre-professional, publications, and standards. And we're going to hear a bit about from the accreditation team today, conferences and events, as well as governance, at least as it's applying to our committee structure today. Just an overview of the process. Started with immersion meetings and then a bit of developing an understanding of each other's respective programs, and even looking outside of how NACE and SSPC does their work today, see if there's best practice that we can bring in. And all of the teams are kind of towards the end of this ladder, where they'll be presenting their recommendations for the transition team to review and endorse as appropriate. So getting towards the end, the goal is to have the majority of the recommendations and teams in place before the end of the year. So now I'm going to turn it over to Heather Hill to talk about our proposed membership model for the new organization. Heather? Thank you, Tim.
So the membership team has been working well over a year now on proposing this model. It was actually presented last month to the transition team. And what it looks at is delivering the best of both organizations and the value into a corporate and individual model. So Tim, if you can go to the next slide, please. What you'll see here is the proposed corporate membership model. This is a tiered program. We are looking at 3 levels with varying degrees of benefits. If you'll look at the benefits, there's an equal split of value related to not only savings, cost savings, but also access to knowledge and recognition. One of the benefits that I do want to point out here that I know is very important to both members and both organizations is the ability to have unlimited standard access. That is available at the corporate membership levels. Some other things to look at here is that membership through the corporate levels will also include a set number of corporate member representatives under your corporate umbrella, as well as conference registration included at corporate option 1 and 2. So those are just a couple of the highlights of the corporate membership model. And I know at the end, I'm sure there are questions as well, and we can take those at the Q&A. Tim? Here you're looking at the proposed individual membership. And what you're looking at here are really two levels of individual membership. We've titled those for now our premium level of membership and our standard level of membership. The difference here between these two levels, of course, is the cost. There's a $50 difference. And if you are aware, that price now also matches what NACE and SSPC members are currently used to seeing. Some of the other differences that you'll notice is that standards access, you have a set number of credits for standards at both levels. And then the association subscription at the premium level, you would have access to MP and Coatings Pro. And at the standard level, you would be able to select your subscription choice. There's 3 additional rates that you'll see, and these rates are really specific to the members' level of status. So if you're a lifetime member, which is going to be designated as your age plus years of service, a young professional. To confirm, we're still verifying what we're going to define young professional as, and we're actually working with the pre-professional team to make sure that we match their definition. And then student membership. The young professional and student members, they're actually going to come in at the premium level. We want to make sure that we're supporting this next generation of people through the industry. So we want to make sure that they have access to the highest level of membership so that they are geared and prepared to enter the industry. Next, please. And what does this mean for members on both sides? I think what I'm most excited about is that if you look at the membership, what you're going to have is an increased value overall. By combining both organizations, your access to standards, that library increases, digital papers, anything that both organizations currently offer today, that data library is going to be more expansive for those entering into new org. Not only that, but your network is going to grow. So currently, we have about 31,000 members at NACE and 10,000 at SSPC. There is a little bit of overlap between the two organizations, but you're looking at a combined network that is going to greatly increase. And those aren't the only areas that you're going to see an increase in value to you as a member. On the next slide, you'll see that that really touches every single aspect of the organization as well as this membership model. So online communities, those are going to be more robust. Conferences, those as they are combined and members from both sides are now going to have access to a complete calendar of full events. Savings, publications, again, the data library knowledge available to our members is going to grow in the new organization. Support, I like to think of support not only as what the organization can offer you, but also the staff. The ability by combining these two organizations and having a larger staff to be able to support the initiatives is a huge win for the membership. And again, recognition, bringing in two very well-respected organizations into a single new organization, that recognition and brand that our members are going to be able to tie to themselves. is extremely valuable as well. And any aspect that you look at as far as value to the members, it is increased by bringing the two organizations together. Next slide, please. So as Tim mentioned during his timeline, work will carry on into 2021. On January 2021, we are officially new org. However, there's some dependencies to deliver the new membership model. And because of that, we're anticipating that the second half of 2021 is when the new org membership model will launch. So what do we do in between January 2021 and when this new org model will launch? And what we've decided is that we will continue delivering the current NACE and the current SSPC membership models until the time that the new model is ready and available to distribute to members of both organizations. In the meantime, what we're going to offer our membership on both sides is an ability to have dual membership. So what this will look like, and we're still working out the details, but this will be in place for January 2021, is that any new, renewing, or current members within either organization will have the option to opt into membership at no cost in the other organization at the individual and the corporate level. So if you are a current or renewing or even a new member in the start of January 2021, New Org will be communicating to you on how to opt in to membership on the other side at no cost. So stay tuned. We are working out the details and we'll be able to present that. But what we want to do is make sure that members have access to both organizations until the time that we're able to launch the new membership model to you.
Got to find my own mute button on occasion. Thanks, Heather. Very nice. Next, we're going to hear from Jacob Adams about conferences and events. As folks probably know, there is a conference and event calendar and programs for both organizations. So this is aimed at how do we bring those together and have an effective conference and event program going forward. So Jacob, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. As Tim mentioned, I'm Jacob Adams. I'm the Director of Conferences, Exhibits, and Sponsorships with NACE, soon to be New Org. So I just wanted to share with you some of the exciting things that our team has been working on to ensure that we can continue to serve our members of both organizations as we move forward into 2021 and beyond. Our team has completed a review, a rather robust review of all of the policies and procedures that both organizations utilize to develop and deliver content to our members. That has also included the benchmarking of best practices on how to develop and deliver content, not only from inside our organization, but also externally. We've reviewed documentation and practices from over 30 different organizations in science and technology associations, as well as other associations outside of our industry, including IT and healthcare industries as well, to ensure that we have a comprehensive, holistic picture on the best way to deliver content for our members. Part of that has also included the review of survey data from our attendees from past events over the last 5 years, as well as reviewing feedback and data from member leaders that have been involved in the planning committees for both organizations to develop that content. And lastly, we've also reviewed all of our vendor and venue contracts to determine the best path forward for New Org to ensure that we can accommodate the type of growth we anticipate experiencing in the coming years. If you could go to the next slide. Yes, sir.
Sure. Could you define SWOT for folks, please?
SWOT, yes. So the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for New Org. So based on all of the survey feedback and data that we had collected from the various pieces that I just described, the transition team, or the integration team rather, has put together what are the strengths and weaknesses for both organizations that we're bringing forward to new org, and also have identified the opportunities and threats to ensure that we are developing a robust program to serve our members moving forward. All right, so 2021 and beyond. So as Heather indicated, January 1st, we will be moving forward as new org, and that will obviously have some implications for some of our programming. For those of you who are more involved in SSPC, you've probably received announcements over the past couple of months that have indicated that the Codings Plus 2021 event that was slated for Phoenix in February has been postponed to December of 21 due to COVID-19. So that is something that the new org conference team will continue to work on, and is very excited to deliver to the community at the end of next calendar year. As for Corrosion 2021, that is scheduled to take place in April of 2021 in Salt Lake City. We are working closely with the local officials and following the guidelines and recommendations that are being put forth by the Centers for Disease Control to ensure that we can deliver this event safely, and we will continue to make sure that updated information will be provided to our members on the website and in email communications as appropriate to ensure that everyone remains updated with Corrosion 2021. We also are planning for Corrosion 2021 to include a hybrid component. So for those of you who may be unable to attend in person this April, there will be a portion of content available to stream during the event to ensure that you can still have access to some of the most cutting edge sessions and technology out there right now from the comfort of your home or office. Moving forward, our first planned joint annual conference will be held in March of 2022 in San Antonio, Texas. So that new combined offering will be a melting pot or a mix of content and programming from what you would typically see at Codings Plus and at the Corrosion Conference and Expo. So we're very excited about that, and that will be getting kicked off in March of 2022. For those of you who are more familiar with the NACE events, you may be asking what's going to happen with those regionally focused area and topical events that NACE currently offers. Right now, the plan is to still continue to offer that regionally focused topical event for the new org membership. So those will not go away. So if you are planning on continuing, or if you typically plan to participate in those events on an annual basis, local to your area, those will continue to be offered, and more information will become available as we get into the 2021 calendar year. As I mentioned already, I got ahead of myself. We will be offering some virtual and hybrid content in conjunction with Corrosion 2021, but we do plan to continue to have a hybrid component as a portion of some of our offerings for future events, because we do recognize the value that hybrid can offer for individuals who may have challenges in attending in-person events, regardless of where they're taking place in the world and regardless of the situation related to COVID-19. And as I wrap this up, I just want to let everyone know that we also have ensured that all venues and cities where NACE has previously held contracts to move forward with annual conference through 2028, those contracts with those venues and cities and hotels can accommodate the growth that we will be experiencing with new org. So rest assured that we will be able to serve our new joint membership and new org with ease moving forward for our annual events. And the primary takeaway here is to ensure that all of our members from both organizations will remain involved in the planning process, and that there will be a voice for all of those stakeholders involved in the program planning and development process to deliver content for the Codings and Corrosion communities.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
But next, we're going to, I guess, turn our attention to Sam, and he's going to talk to us about accreditation integration team and progress that they've been making. Sam?
Thanks, Tim. So I'm happy to report that accreditation integration team has been doing a fantastic job getting to where we are in the process. We've covered the majority of the topics that we had scheduled to cover, and we're getting ready for our recommendations to be made to the transition team. If you can move to the next slide. So one of our initial goals was to figure out how to bring the QP program and the NICAP program together. Being as though the QP program has been around for over 20 years, the NICAP program is a little bit newer. From a name recognition standpoint, the team is going to make a recommendation that the QP brand be the brand that's going to move forward for the joint New Org accreditation program. That doesn't mean elements of NICAP are going to be left out. You know, they're going to be incorporated into QP, you know, in different processes. But what we found is we did a lot of the investigation that, you know, from an audit perspective on contractors, NICAP and QP were auditing contractors very similarly. You know, the audits were taking place, you know, in a fashion at which, you know, make sure that contractors are doing the right thing for the owners that they're performing work for, and that is going to continue on moving forward. NICAP had some slightly different elements than were available with QP, so some of those programs are going to live on, specifically some of the training aspects. But anyone who is a current certified NICAP contractor, they are going to be transitioned into the new program over a period of time, and staff is working towards development of that process. So, you know, up until they decide that there is a new process for renewal, you're going to, all those contractors would continue to renew in the same fashion. And that would go for QP as well. Next slide, Tim. So there's I guess a couple parts of the way accreditation works. So number one, accreditation revolves around standards that are created. Standards live in a different place in you know, the two organizations right now, the separate organizations, NACE and SSPC, and they will continue to live in a separate place in the new org. However, what we're going to recommend is that the accreditation program committee have you know, a very close relationship with the standards development teams for both the QP standards as well as things like certified applicators or the CAS standards, all the things that apply to accreditation and, you know, how it affects contractors, how it affects owners out in the field. So we're going to open up a, you know, close way to dialogue between those two groups and make sure that everybody's aware of what changes are going on and how to communicate that properly. New Org will also, the disciplinary actions related to accreditation will continue to live in the accreditation program up until a certain point. Over a certain point, there is an ethics and professional practice committee that may get involved. But I would say, you know, the vast majority of disciplinary actions that get taken for contractors not doing what they're supposed to continue to be part of the program will live within that particular program. And staff, for the most part, will be managing that. As far as owner participation in the future, you know, and a strategy for growth for the program, those are the two things that are, I think, most exciting for the team and for us as an industry. Is now that, you know, we're not having two competing programs, you know, working towards trying to get one specified versus the other. Now we're working really hard with some extra horsepower to get this specified around the, you know, the country, around the world, in that global environment. And the global environment is the one where we actually see the most promise. It's the area where I think that there's the most opportunity for development. In the US, the QP program does pretty well with, you know, DOTs. You know, it's getting better with water, wastewater, certain aspects. We're certainly going to capitalize on, some of the relationships from, that each organization has individually. And then, as well around the world with some of the bigger owners to get them to specify the program and continue to get contractors certified.
Thanks, Sam. Certainly, there'll be some questions, I'm sure, popping in as we go on that. The last update will be on governance, at least as it applies to our committee structure, and I'll give a brief overview of that, and then we'll move on to questions and answers. I recognize we're a bit over our 30 minutes, but a lot of information to share this time around. So we have, both organizations have committees today. We'll have committees tomorrow. There'll be member-led bodies responsible for how our organization will execute our goals and objectives in their respective areas, in their programmatic areas. There will be a liaison from the appropriate board of directors to each of the program committees, and I'll explain that in a diagram here in just a minute, to ensure that there's connection between the committees and the board of directors. And there will also be staff liaison to support the committees and the work that they need to execute. Each committee will have a committee charter, which is essentially what its remit, its scope, what's in its scope, what's outside of its scope. More about what's in its scope. If it's not in the scope, then it's outside of the scope. We're trying to make sure that we maximize the efficiency, that we maximize the impact of member and staff time to ensure we're not spending time on things that we don't need to spend time on. And we'll have strategic goals for each of the committee areas to work through. There'll be two types of committees, joint committees, which will be have members from both organizations. So again, there is a new org C6 component and a new org C3 component. Joint committees will have members from both of those organizations. And they'll follow a cadence that runs on a January to December schedule, which is the same as the C6 Board of Directors cadence. Program committees will follow their responsible board schedule. The C6, again, is January to December, and the C3 will be July to June. So 6-month offset between the two organizations. The joint committees are the nominating committee, which we shared who was on the initial nominating committee in our October update. We have 3 advisory councils that will be set up that will have membership from or representation from both the C6 and the C3. There's an owner council, a contractor advisory council, and a global advisory council. The details of those councils were shared in earlier presentations, but their intent is to provide strategic input into the respective boards of directors so that we're thinking longer term and making sure that we're hearing from key constituencies. There'll be a joint finance and audit committee and a joint ethics and professional practice committee. The second type of committees are program committees, and we said program committees will report in and follow the cadence of the responsible board. So this chart shows the C6 committees on the left side: accreditation, certification, advocacy, and membership, and the C3 side, which will have the education, standards, technical activities, research activities, conferences, publications, and our pre-professional program. And that's really it for the update. We have a lot more integration activity that's coming this month for the steering and the transition team, and all of the integration teams be busy through the end of the year. We do have town halls scheduled in December, and we're working to plan what January will look like. Hopefully before the end of this month, we'll have a view as to what January and early New Year will look like. Again, we're active on all of the social media platforms, maybe not all of them, but the popular ones that we have listed down below. Emails are coming out every Friday, and there are dedicated web pages with email address if you have questions, concerns, or feedback for the team. That's one way to get a hold of us as well. And I think with that, I'm going to probably turn it back to Sam. He's going to be the moderator for the question and answer session. And I guess, Sam, back to you.
Thanks, Tim. Great job as always. We have some great questions listed here today. So we'll get into those. So Sabari has a question about the NACE CIP renewal concept after January 2021. So I think Cindy, you're probably the one most familiar with where the certification team is on, suggestions for renewal after 2021. So if you wouldn't mind taking this.
No, I wouldn't mind. So they are still working on that program, but as far as the costs are considered, if that's kind of where the question is coming from, they're going to follow closely as they can what membership is doing. So if you have, both certifications, if you have both, then you'll only be paying for one. That's different than an equivalency, of course, of the technical merit. And they are working on those recommendations to see how they compare that way. They should be done very soon with those types of recommendations to the transition team, and then we'll hear the outcome of how we're going to move forward as new org for the actual technical certification.
Great, thank you. And Cindy, as a follow-up to that, there are a couple questions that came in regarding SSPC certifications having the same weight as NACE certifications. So for example, CIP level 1, 2, 3, is that equivalent to PCI level 1, 2, and 3?
That's exactly what I meant by the technical aspect, Sam. So yes, whoever asked the question, that's where they're at right now, and they certainly hold the same weight in the industry for how they've been used. They're just comparing that. So how they've been used, how they've been adopted, and making sure that all of those who are certified in the industry, those who are specifying those certifications are still getting, that there's an understanding of what's being specified and the certification that's being held. So I apologize that we don't have an immediate answer now, but I know that they're very close to bringing that forward.
Great. And one more while we're still on the topic. We have a question that says, after the 1st of January 2021, SSPC PCI and NACE CIP will be offered by international licensees in respective countries, or will it be continued, or will that be continued with a new org? Many students are confused on this, so if you could explain that possibly.
Can you read that one more time?
Sure. So it's regarding PCI and CIP training classes by international licensees, or will it be done? I think what they mean by the question is, will it be done by staff, or will it be continued to go through licensees internationally? And Bob, you may want to jump in on that.
Let me jump in on this one. Yes, so the answer is, I see the model continuing where we'll have a mix of courses offered directly from our own organization, as well as continuing the model with licensees or partners, depending on which organization you're talking about. But I don't see a disruption to that business model. It served both organizations very well over the years, and has allowed us to truly reach the world and to offer courses where we are not able to offer them today. So if we were just doing it on our own. So I do see that the licensees and partners will be part of the plan in the future.
Great. Thanks, Bob. While I have you on, there was, I guess, a comment that just wanted to throw out there regarding the December 21st conference could be in conflict with China Coat. He was just asking if there was, Guy was asking if there's any issues with that. I don't know that that's something that was on our radar, but I wanted to throw out there for you.
If Jacob is still on, I might defer for him to answer that question. I don't think there is an issue, but I'm not familiar with all the conferences. So Jacob, can you chime in on that? Jacob just sent me a chat. His Zoom froze, so he's on. We see his name and he's on, but he's unable to respond. So I will say this: I can't address that specific issue, but one of the things that we do as we schedule conferences is we work closely with our partners and friends to make sure that we are not scheduling courses on top of each other or as much as possible around the world, and to vet before conferences go on the schedule. And they do the same thing with us. So I don't expect, even if they're happening at the same time, that there was an expectation of a conflict or a problem that would have been vetted earlier on. Not that we're perfect, because there are times when both organizations make the decision it's better to go forward than to try to move it around. But we work pretty closely with, or like I said, sister organizations or groups around the world that offer conferences.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bob. Will there be a new name for the QP program? What if it's been specified? So will there be a statement by NUORG to clarify this? I'm happy to jump in on this one. So the QP program will continue to be the QP program. Whether it's going to continue to be branded as the SSPC QP program or the NUORG QP program, that's still left to be determined. But that, we will work with specifiers to try to make sure that we're not causing issues for specifications. If anyone is specifying NICAP programs, into the future, obviously if they reach out to the organization, they're going to be notified that, the new name of the program is QP, should it be approved by the transition team. But there definitely will be a process to handle issues related to those. So, without a doubt, there will be statements and communications, especially to the owners that we know of that specify, contractor accreditation. So absolutely, we're going to take care of that. Michelle, thanks for the question. All right, so we have a question from Wilfred. And Heather, I think this is directed towards you. It says, excellent work, thank you. However, what are the requirements or criteria for premium and standard memberships respectively? And secondly, why are young professionals given a membership for half the premium instead of half the standard membership?
Okay, thank you, Sam. So the first question related to the requirements for premium versus standard membership, there are no requirements. It is absolutely the member's preference. There is not any way to create a one-size-fits-all membership model. So by having a tiered program, it allows you to pick which model is best for you, whether that's the premium or standard. And that's really the only difference. Regarding your second question, young professionals have these same benefits as the premium level of membership. So that's why we opted to go with the pricing of half of the premium model, because those are the benefits that a young professional would have access to.
Great, thanks, Heather. And just as a follow-up, you had answered a question in writing a little earlier on. The question was, as for conference paper access, is that free for both premium and standard memberships? If you would just, follow up and read your answer to that for people who might not have access to the screen.
Yes, and then just to confirm, historical papers are going to be available to all premium and standard members. By historical papers, we mean papers that are a year So the first year that a conference paper is out and available, that's still going to remain a benefit for those that register early and attend the event. They'll also be available for purchase, but once the next slate of papers are available, those historical papers will be added to the library and members will have access to all of that content, no matter the level.
Perfect. Thanks, Heather. So Ray has a question about sections and chapters. Will they be combined if we have an organization established in one country, and if the guidelines and laws already in place will be shared by next year? So I think there's a few things in that, but Bob, I'm going to turn that one over to you to answer questions on where that stands right now.
I'm actually going to let Heather answer that because she has been in every team meeting and this is a developing story. So she has the latest information.
Excellent.
Sure. So yes, we do plan to combine chapters and sections. There is a chapter and section integration team, and they are still working on their recommendations. Those recommendations are slated to go to the transition team next month. So they're still developing their work, and there's still changes and things to come with that group. What I'll say right now is that the goal is that the current chapters and sections do combine and serve together the memberships within that geographic region. We actually are encouraging chapters and sections to go ahead and start working together and partnering now and start building those relationships within their region. We are working on guidelines, of course, where we have international chapters and sections in varying countries. There are varying laws, and we are working with our legal team for recommendations on how best to have those groups established internationally. And again, we anticipate that all of those recommendations are going to be finalized and sent to the transition team next month. So we'll have more information to follow very soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Heather. So I've been purposely skipping the question that's listed in Spanish because I can't translate it, but apparently Tim has a professional translation on it. And Tim, if you wouldn't mind answering the question from Damien. And if you could do it in Spanish, even better.
Well, it's not going to be even better then. It's just going to be normal. Just loosely translated, I think that the question is, and we can confirm with our translator, but that one of the important pieces of being a member for SSPC was the access to the standards. It's unlimited access for standards today. And going forward, it is limited to 1 or 2 standards in the membership model that was being proposed that Heather shared. And so the question is, have you considered have you considered the option of reducing the cost of standards in some form or fashion to help in that area? I think there's 2 things here, and I would ask Chris to step in. He's on our standards integration team, and perhaps is best positioned to answer the question about why NACE took a position to start charging for standards last year and the value that we expect that to have. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Tim. I hope that our translator is able to translate this question to the person who submitted it. But a little bit about why we made the change to charging for standards again. After a 1-year analysis of the NACE standards program, we saw that we had some issues, and quite frankly, our standards program was not where we wanted it to be. It was not where the best-in-class standards developing organizations around the world are. Part of that is that we were not really reinvesting in our standards program. We benchmarked against many other SDOs around the world who develop standards and saw that the vast majority of those organizations were charging for their standards and consequently reinvesting those funds into their standards program. So we realized it wasn't an easy decision for many folks who were used to receiving unlimited standards downloads, but we felt it was necessary for us to do so we could get our standards program back to the level where it needed to be. So that's a little basis for the background of it. Regarding reduction of cost for standards, if that's being interpreted accurately, that was discussed, but again, with benchmarking against other standards developing organizations, we're right kind of on the low end of what most organizations charge for their standards. We're running an average of about $69 per standard, so we felt that that was a good spot for us to be in. But there has been no further discussion about any reductions. Although those were considered as part, I believe, Heather might comment on that, as some kind of a discount program for certain levels, but felt that the model that Heather presented was the best of all worlds.
Thanks, Chris. I think there won't be a change in that space, I'm guessing, without at least some proper notification or some advanced warning, such that if you feel you need to update your standards library with that information, you'll have sufficient time to do that. Apologize if you can hear a dog in the background, but that's the nature of Zoom meetings today. Secondly, there are a couple of corporate membership tiers that have access to standards as presented in what Heather shared earlier. Heather, I don't know if you have anything else to add in that space.
So I'll say when we were considering standard access, it has maintained at the corporate at all levels. When we were looking at the impact to new org, we were realizing that making sure that corporate members still had access really made sure that there was the minimal amount of change to the majority of our members. So it is an impact to some, but it was an impact to minority to change that. And the reason being is that the majority of SSPC members today are corporate members. So when they transition into new org membership, that benefit does not change. They'll transfer in as a corporate member and they'll continue access. So that was really the majority or the main driver as we were making those decisions related to standards. And also trying to make sure that by putting benefits and value into the membership model, we weren't changing the strategic direction of the product area, in this case, standards.
Excellent. Thank you all for that. Heather, while you're still on, I guess there's a little bit of a follow-up question that I think that we addressed in parts, but maybe you could address it specifically. Regarding corporate membership, if somebody has both NACE and SSPC corporate membership, if they're moving on, are they still recertifying or renewing both NACE and SSPC memberships? At what time will that change? Because they don't want to lose any of the technical literature that they're currently getting from either organization.
Sure. So as a member of both organizations today, when you come up for renewal, whichever side that's on, whether that's NACE or SSPC, you'll renew in that organization and you will have continue to have membership in both. I believe this is access to technical literature and how you get it. So both models are still operating independently. So if you are logged in as a NACE member, for example, and you're looking for SSPC technical literature, you're still going to have access to log in as a SSPC member, and you would access literature in that portal, if that makes sense. So you're still accessing benefits through two independent models. There are definitely going to be bumps in the roads, and that's kind of part of the dependencies that we mentioned in launching the new org program. We need to make sure that on the back end, we're bringing all of those products together so we can deliver them in through one channel, which is new org. So you will continue to have membership. You'll only need to renew in one organization. And when you're looking to access that technical literature, you're going to access it through the organization that it currently resides in.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so there's a question from Urvesh that they're interested in committee membership. How can they extend their support? So Tim, maybe you could speak a little to the communications that might be going out in a short period of time looking for volunteers.
Sure. Actually, they will be going out and ideally this week, but our committee membership will be changing, not the committee membership, our committee structure will be changing at least at the parent level committees. So the high level, the top tier committees. And there will be a request for volunteers that will be going out this week, essentially an open call to our membership for inviting individuals that are interested in participating to share information about why they would be good for whichever particular committee that they're interested in working on. And those will be vetted and worked through with the chair of the committees as we go forward through the remainder of the year. So we hope to have the parent level committees in place before the end of the year, and then there'll be a transition between what is the current committee structure inside of NACE and SSPC into the new combined committee structure for the new organization. So if you're a member today and getting emails from NACE SSPC, you'll be receiving that email by the end of the week.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Ray has a follow-up question. I think we had, Cindy, you'd covered this one earlier on, but it says, in case the certified individual has both PCI and CIP certifications, which is best for them to renew and how does that work?
Yep, I can handle that. So for whatever reason you hold the current certification and where it's specified, that is going to be supported, hold the full weight of why you held that certification moving forward. So you would certainly renew what you have now as these two organizations are combining. And when there is a blended, or if there isn't multiple and there's a blended program, then the committee will reach out to you. You will be reached out by the organization to explain that so that you can obtain the singular certification that you desire. But I should note that the current certifications hold the same weight they did and the same specifications they held.
Excellent. Thank you, Cindy. So we are coming up to the top of the hour where the presentation is and question and answer period is ending. Just wanted to thank all the presenters for their time and explanation with things that are going on. We do have another town hall later this week. So if you felt as though you didn't have a particular question answered or something comes up between now and then, please join us for that. You can sign up on either the NACE or the SSPC pages. There will be information, the ones that are up in the upper right-hand corner of this slide that's up right now. And, we hope to see you on upcoming town hall presentations in December on the 14th and the 17th. So please sign up for those as well. And we wish everyone a good rest of your day and possibly, depending on where you are, a good evening. So again, thank